Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to. If you're interested in creating more balance in your life, understanding your 5-element energetic nature, finding the path of greatest ease,
or releasing the baggage of this lifetime and discovering ancient alchemy that can help you fly in your life, join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jay, and this is Pod 34, and I'm here with my co-host, Lita Herman.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers. We have been talking about strategic life strategy, alchemy work in the past 2 podcasts, and we've been getting a lot of questions about the 9 palaces. So we promised you that we're going to embark on a little journey here through the 9 palaces starting today.
Yeah, but first we're going to do a little recap of the past 2 pods, and then we'll take the deeper dive into the 9 palaces. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Right.
The last 2 podcasts, we kind of talked about this idea of a do-it-yourself life strategist approach, like you're coaching yourself.
Yeah. So my first little bit of wisdom here is to hire a coach.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go.
If you
That's
want to work on it,
easiest.
hire a coach.
Yes. And then if you can't,
maybe find a friend,
a
confidant, someone that you can trust, someone that's non-judgmental, and someone who's not mental. Go with non-judgmental and not mental. And then the third would be work on yourself. Ask yourself better questions. Use your journal. Really look at the things that are, really challenging you in life. And then this podcast right here might help illuminate a little bit as well.
Yes. And in the last 2 podcasts, we talked about a very important concept, which is honesty with yourself. You can't do this life strategy work and really embark on this 9 palaces journey with us if you're not willing to be objective about yourself. And that requires asking tough questions.
Yeah,
Jay always says better questions, but it really is a deep examination of yourself. I watch people who work with Jay come to these major realizations about themselves, things that they've been blind to their whole life. They can't see the truth of how they're being in the world. And when you examine the 9 palaces and you start to see, wow, I'm always doing that, or I'm always doing this, you can start to make some changes.
Well, and I think that you kind of touched right on it, because when you start to do this, it's really about this accountability. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you realize, you know what, the last 4 boyfriends, it wasn't them, it's you.
Yes.
Okay. Or, the last 3 jobs that you had,
it wasn't them,
it's you. And sometimes that's like this huge illumination, but also a huge weight that's lifted off their back. But that takes time. You have to kind of digest that and sit with it and let it marinate, and then boom, things start to shift again. So it's accountability. It's a self-accountability.
Yes, and that's what we talked about in the previous podcast, just to set up this idea of a do-it-yourself life strategy.
Yeah, and I also would like to say, if you could identify your 5 elements, that really helps as well, because you get to understand how you're energetically moving through the world, how the people around you are moving through the world, and if there's conflict or really good compatibility energetically, you can understand that, and that will definitely help. So we take the 5 elements, we overlay the 9 palaces, we kind of mix it all around, we see where things are falling.
And if you don't know your element, stop the podcast right now and go back to those beginning episodes. There's quite a number of them on the 5 elements, but you can start with pod 2 to listen to the overview of the 5 elements. And while we're at it, why don't you go back to pod 4, which is where we first introduced.
If you don't know anything about the 9 palaces and you're like, what is that about? Go back to pod 4. Just hit pause, go back, listen to it, come back. We're probably still going to be talking.
Yes.
So we'll be just blah, blah, blah. But we'll be here, and we will then go into the deep dive for you on the 9 palaces.
Yes.
But before we begin, let's remind everyone about some of the exciting things we have going on here at the world headquarters of Inspired Action Podcast.
The world headquarters.
Yes, in our podcasting studio.
Our giant podcasting studio, right?
Yes. Well, I have no words for that. It's just so big, I can't wrap my brain around it. But no, we're in our world headquarters, and we're bringing this podcast to you. But no, why don't you start, Lita, and let people know we have a lot going on.
Yes. Can I tell them the secret about our studio?
All depends, but then that wouldn't be a secret.
No, it wouldn't.
What's the secret?
It's a closet.
It is not.
It's a room that is very small because it's very soundproof.
Yeah, it is a soundproof. It's a podcast studio. It's an acoustically matched podcasting studio. Hey, we have sound panels on the wall. We have a sound dampening curtain.
Yes.
We actually closed the door.
Yeah. So there you go.
And we each have a microphone.
So it's a sound booth.
Yes.
There you
go. Sound closet. How about that? Custom sound closet.
It works.
Okay,
That's all we care
the
about.
other secret is, there's clothes hanging here in this the podcasting studio.
That's the funny thing is there's actually some clothes hanging.
And there's a dog bed here too.
Yes.
But it's, it's really cozy.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry. There's the secret.
There's the
of
secret
the world headquarters.
Of the world headquarters, the giant world headquarters of Inspired Action.
Okay, well, all right. So, boy, now I feel small.
Yes.
No, let's go big. We have big things on the horizon.
Okay. Well, first of all, we just wanted to reiterate to everyone who's not who's been with us before, or if you're new, we have a Facebook group and it's called the Inspired Action Podcast Facebook group. So there's a page and you can go there and there's a link to the group and you just need to request to join us and tell us that you're listening.
Yes. And Lead is there a lot. I need to get them more. So ask me more questions and I will definitely try to be more of an active participant.
And you can ask a question on that group or you can send a question to us at questions@inspiredactionpodcast.com. And if you ask a question and we air your question and answer it online.
So if we air your laundry, we're going to give you some laundry.
Yes.
We're going to give you an Inspired Action t-shirt.
That's perfect.
There you go. So give us your dirty laundry. We'll give you clean laundry.
There you go.
We will wash it before we send it. So t-shirt, if you give us a question and we use it. And then what else do we have going? We have a couple other big things.
The other announcement I wanted to say is stay tuned to the end of this podcast. We're going to talk about the Master Alchemy program.
Woohoo.
This is exciting. And if you're here with us in February 2019.
Yes. So if you're not if you're time traveling back and it's February 2019, you still have time to apply. But if not, then click on the button and join our waiting list for 2020.
Yes.
We're only going to do this class once a year right now. And then in the future, we might do it multiple times.
Multiple times, yes. And we're very excited about it. So we'll tell you more at the end of the podcast. And then there's also the new app.
Woo!
Woo! And
which is in its baby steps. So please stay with it. Download it. And there's all the podcasts are on there. There's a few meditations on it that we've talked about before. We also have a new meditation that is an add-on. But we're going to have lots of free stuff on there. Lots of really cool things that you can dive into. And then we'll have some added content as well.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, if you're new to the app, it's really convenient to listen to the podcast. So it's wonderful for that reason. We also are going to be putting up a lot of new meditations that are like extra. So we do ask you to give a little donation to the app developers.
Yeah, it's not going to us. It's going to the people who made the app.
Yeah. And so it's
unfortunately,
it's $1.99 a month, not too much. And you'll get these extra meditations. So if you've already done the Rebellious Chi meditation, the next meditation is called Journey to Your Higher Self. And that's already up in the app.
So how do they get the app?
So they can go to the App Store or they can go to Google Play.
Okay, and look up what?
And look up Inspired Action.
So and you'll see our little logo with the smiley face and the red headphones, and that's us. So you click on it. It's free to get the app.
Yeah, and so everything's free except for these special meditations we're going to start putting up. We're going to be recording a bunch more in the next few days. So we will let you know when those are available. In the
and if you're an Actioneer listener of the podcast, and if you're feeling a little inspired today, if you could go to iTunes, maybe sign in, rate us, give us a quick rate, and tell us why you like the podcast. We're so appreciative. We read every one of the reviews. We're trying to get to be #1 in the health category on iTunes, which for us is self-help. So we're really trying to work on that, and every little bit helps. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're on this journey together.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. All right. So let's talk about the 9 palaces.
Yes. Let's talk about the 9 palaces.
Okay. So that's not quite a gentle segue.
No.
Hey, whatever happened to Segway? Those scooters that people never bought?
Yeah. What happened to them?
I don't know. Those were the stand-up ones. Remember those?
Yes.
With the big wheels?
With the big wheels.
I just have seen so many videos of people just go bloop, fall right off.
Maybe that's why they didn't last too long.
I totally wanted one.
I could totally see you riding on them. You'd be good at it.
They were like $8,000. And I'm like, $8,000 for broken collarbone? No, thank you. I'll pass on that one.
But I have seen police officers riding around on them. I think that's interesting.
Okay, so they went really slow. So you'd have what? They're going to chase the seniors in the scooters?
Yes, right.
The only ones who can't get away?
The golf carts.
The golf cart. No, golf carts can go pretty fast.
Yeah.
So we can Google that, and we'll probably have some videos of the Segways chasing the scene. Maybe senior crime is out of control, and they need a Segway to slow them down.
We'll have to put it in the show notes.
All right, I'm going to do and look. That's going to be my homework to go find some funny Segway. So I think segued into extinction.
There you go.
How about that for a play
Can
on
we
words?
segue back into the 9 palaces?
Yeah, the segue back into the 9 palaces, which is very cool. It's kind of like this Chinese theory of life, like purpose in life, fulfilling your curriculum. You have a nice way of explaining it.
Yeah, the Taoists believe that we all sort of come to this lifetime with a purpose, or what they call it a curriculum, something we want to learn. I think of it like a quest.
Yeah.
So we have this quest to follow that star. No, I was just watching Frankie and Grace when they sang that song.
Yes.
So this quest.
We are going to use some quests in the future. Just a little heads up there.
Yeah. So you have these lessons, and if you complete all these lessons, you get to complete the quest. Boy,
and I say you go through it with experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it sounds like an online game. You have all these lessons. And
how about it's in life game? It's your life.
It's in life game. Yes, your life.
There's no do-over.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But yeah, so and I think, for me, working with the alchemical strategy sessions and stuff, it's about experience. You come here, you live your life, you're doing your thing, so to speak, and then you have all these categories, these 9 categories. Well, there's 8, and then number 9 is the center is home. I like to say home with a capital H, which is going to take us a while to get to that one, but so you have these 8 palaces of life. So I explain it to people as remember the game Trivia Pursuit?
Yes.
With the pie, with the wedges?
Yes.
Well, imagine each one of those wedges was one of these palaces, except for there's 9. And then to get to that last one, there's 8 actually, then you get the last one is home. So you have to go in. So to fill them all with these different palaces, then you get to get home, and that's how you win the
Or
game.
remember that Parcheesi game where you go around the outside of the board.
Okay, Grandma.
Nobody plays that anymore.
Okay, so you're not a grandma, but that is really
No,
old.
I'm not grandma. Thank you. Okay, well, anyway, I think there are other games like
so if you want to go to the vintage antique store and find Parcheesi or Trivial Pursuit, I have new people now. They're younger people. They have no idea what those games are. So I need a new game suggestion. So if anyone's out there and they know a new game that kids can relate to,
I think the game of life is actually one of those games that has
Okay, that's great, Grandma. Okay. I'm pretty certain they don't even make that, and those toys are probably so toxic or chokeable.
That's not true.
If you let any kids play the game of life, there's a big choking hazard.
I just bought it for my nephew.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. It could be a short game of life if you choke on those little toy cars.
That's true. That's true. But anyway, the idea is that you go around the outside of the board, and then you have to get home. You have to roll your dice.
So you have to have experiences in the game of life.
Yes.
You just said that.
There you go.
There
So
you
the
go.
game of life is perfect.
Yes, I'll have to revisit that.
Yes.
I'll have to go to the back of the antique vintage store to look for that one.
Yeah.
They'll be like, no, don't you want Parcheesi instead? No.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting a little silly here, but that's okay. So Trivia Pursuit, you get the idea. The pie wedges, you got to fill the 8. 9 you get when you go home, or Parcheesi, you go around the board a few times, or life, if you don't choke on the little cars, you get to have the experiences around the board, and then you get to go home.
Yes.
So that's it. We're done. That's the 9 palaces. No. Let's just tell them again what the 9 palaces are.
Yeah, that's
So
a great idea.
We go with career, relationship, health, wealth,
Yes.
and then home is in the center on my list, and then it's travel, adventure, children, wisdom, prosperity.
Right.
Actually, in a little bit different order. Sorry about that.
Well, the order is really important because we've decided to start with career because we're following an order of the 9 palaces that is called the Magic Square order. And the Magic Square is this cool thing. It's a box of 9 boxes that it's kind of like Sudoku. If you add up diagonally, horizontally, or vertically any of the 3 boxes, you get 15. So that's the Magic Square, and each square in the Magic Square is one of the 9 palaces. So the first one is career,
And then relationship, health,
and then we
wealth,
go through
home, travel,
right. And I this is a little
adventure.
tidbit I didn't think of before. we are currently talking about stage 2 of alchemy on this podcast.
Yes.
And interestingly, the name of that stage is talisman. And the reason this is very obscure, but the reason that it's important for you to understand the numbers, like career is number 1, relationship is number 2, is if you ever look at a talisman that is written, a Chinese medicine talisman or some other kind of Chinese related talisman, they will have little circles on them. And if there's one circle, that means it's a career talisman. So I'm getting a little obscure here.
This podcast is all about the obscure.
Yes.
If you're listening to this podcast, you dig the obscure. It's not knowledge for everyone, but we're willing to share it.
And some people like to go and reorder the 9 palaces according to the elements. They start with wood and then fire, kind of how we do the elements. They go through all 5. But they put
earth
for
this
last.
Purposes for what we're doing. We're going to go career, relationship, health, wealth, home, travel, adventure, children. Like that's all right there. And then wisdom and prosperity.
Yes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the next bunch of podcasts to do that.
If you're going, wow, what is the 9 palaces? I need to know more. Dun, dun, dun.
Here it is.
Stop it. Pause. Go back to podcast 4 where we introduced the cool concept of the 9 palaces. Just hit pause. Come back. We'll wait. We're still going to be talking. So
we'll wait for you to come back.
We'll wait for you. We'll be sitting right here waiting for you. So then come back to this episode. Time travel back.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go. First palace is going to be career.
Career.
So career is a water element. All the palaces also have related to the, did we say that?
To the elements.
To the elements.
I actually like starting with water because whenever I think about the 5 elements, wood is birthed out of water. So water feels like the beginning and the end.
Sure.
So anyway, go ahead.
I can do that. And actually it is in our list.
Yeah.
It's the 2.
Yeah.
So career is the water element and it's about skill and ability. Doing something over and over and over until you can get really good at it, really do it really well.
Right. That's why water people love to go for trainings. Sometimes
trainings, workshops, seminars,
everything, because they're all about developing skills. And sometimes I don't know if you've seen this, Jay, but I see this all the time. Sometimes water people get stuck in the trainings, doing them almost obsessively, or education in general, because they say they're training for their career, but somehow the career never starts.
Yeah, they just keep training and think they're trying to acquire new skills, more skills, get better at the skills.
It's almost like they don't have the confidence to actually apply the skills.
Yeah, so they have to acquire one more skill.
So that would be like a career issue, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, many people really suffer when it comes to even thinking about a career, talking about their career, or even having a career. Like you just said, they're always acquiring skills. And it's not just water people. This is across the board.
Yes.
Every element has a career kind of challenge. And some people, one of the things, I'll back up just a little bit. And I like to start with what's a job and what's a career.
Great.
So a job is what you do for money. So let's think of, something that you're not really passionate about, what you do. So, and then a career is what is you're passionate about. Your heart's in it. You love it. You wake up every day. You're ready to go. You love everything about it. It brings joy to your life. It makes you happy. It makes you energized. That's a career.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, this is a great topic for the 20-somethings right now who, just spent a fortune on their college education.
And their parents probably.
And they graduate and they get a job that has nothing to do with what they studied. Yeah. They're just trying to make a buck and like get an apartment and get out of their parents' house. And it's not a career. It's a job. And yet they studied and they did all this work to get to some kind of career.
Well, let's just use that. You get out of college, you get a degree. I don't know, pick a career, Lita, somewhere that a career that you would graduate from now.
Marketing.
Okay, so you get a marketing career. Perfect. So you get a degree and you go out looking for jobs and you get hired to work in an office. Okay, so you go there, excited, you get this job, good money, health insurance, 1 or 2 weeks vacation, 401k, security. Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, everyone's like, woo. And some people don't even have a job. So now you feel lucky, relieved, happy to be starting this new path.
Yeah.
Okay, you come in bright-eyed, woohoo, happy, happy, happy. And then guess what? 3 months later, you're into it and you hate it.
Oh my God.
You hate being inside all day. You don't like the lights above you. You don't like being on a computer. There's too many rules, too many regulations to follow. You don't like rules and regulations.
Maybe you don't want to dress in a suit.
You got to dress up every day. You got to figure out how to, feed yourself. It costs a lot of money. All these different things. All these things are starting to drain on you. You're starting to feel a little depressed. You're trying to be sad. You have to conform every day, day after day. You're losing your spark, and you're not being yourself.
Yeah.
So let's just say you do it for a year, maybe 2, and because you want to make some money, you want to save a little bit, maybe take a bigger vacation, and then you stay because you know you want to do something else.
Yeah.
So that's a key right there.
Right.
You stay because you know that you're not going to stay.
Right.
I know it sounds kind of weird, but think about it. So you know you don't like it. You're crystal clear. This is not the job for me. I don't want to be inside all day.
It's technically not your career, according to how we're defining it.
Right.
It's
so it's a job. And you think it's going to be your career. So everyone says, hey, Lita, how's it going? What are you doing for your job? What are you doing for your career? And you'll get identified now with this being inside in an office. So then what happens? A year or two, I'm going to say a year or two, because that usually happens. Change takes a long time. Either you decide it's over or the people you work for decide it's over. Either way, you're done. You're out of job.
Right.
You quit, you get fired. And then you start looking for something new. And the only thing that you can find that's close financially or that you have skills for is, guess what? Another job in an office.
Another job that you hate.
Another job. So then you take another job, you're hoping, you're praying it'll be better. And maybe it is for a while. And you trudge every day knowing what you want to do. It's not this. You want to do anything else. And so this time you do it for like 3 years. It's a little bit better. You get through it. And then one day you decide, or they decide, it's not working. You're done. So you go off into the job market again. And what kind of skills do you still have?
The same
skills. So what are you going to do?
Another job like it.
Yeah. Or are you ready to take less money? Did you actually save any money for those 5 years? You're going to start a new career. You're going to start at the low peg. You have it's like very daunting for people to say, okay, I'm going to take that leap into nothing again. I just wasted 5 years of my life in an office. And it's a hard decision for people to make, especially if they're young.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the things we talked about. I call it the treadmill.
It reminds me of this client that we both worked with whose father was an engineer. And just by default, he decided to be an engineer.
Yes.
And he hated it.
Went to the right school, studied it, knew even in school that he didn't want to follow this path.
Yeah. And he did it for like 10 years, bored out of his mind.
Health brought him down because he made himself sick.
Yeah.
So what happens if you make yourself so sick? Guess what? You can't do the job. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have enough oomph to actually make that break or that leap into something else, health will do it. It'll bring you down.
And I think that is a great example of why we're talking about the 9 palaces today. If somebody instead looks at all their 9 palaces and they start to see how they affect each other, which we're going to talk about, this is a perfect example. If you hate your career, guaranteed other palaces are going to suffer.
Absolutely. It's it's one of the top few that I always talk about are like dominoes.
Yeah.
So one of the top 3 starts to falter, they all go down.
Yeah. And so if you were just honest with yourself that you don't like that career and you took the steps to make a real change, not this like lateral movement to another job you hate, but a real change to discover what you love to do.
That's the thing. Okay, so you go into a new job. We'll go back to the beginning, and you have a great life. You're new, you're young at any age. Doesn't have to be young. And then you start to all the time you spend at work. That's your experience life. Going in, you're working, and then you start to get sad and depressed. And then guess what? You stop doing the things that you used to love to do.
Yeah.
You don't hang out with your friends anymore. You don't go to movies anymore. You don't eat out anymore. All the things that you like to do. And so now you're just watching TV, or guess what? You're going to start tapping into the vices, drinking, drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. They're all just laying on the ground waiting for someone to pick them up. Yeah. And because you're not happy and you're not being authentic or in alignment, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or you numb yourself through different things.
Yep.
So one of the things I'd like to talk about when we really get into career with someone is you have to either love it or leave it.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it can get.
Simple as it, yeah.
If you love it or you leave it.
Yep.
And that's a hard one for people.
Yeah.
But it's challenging, but it's definitely doable. And so we can also talk about if you really can't make that change right now, but you're aware and you know what you want to do, we can kind of back up a little bit and start to see, and almost, I would say 100% of the time, people are not doing the things they love to do. So let's just say they love to go bike riding. They're not bike riding anymore. So if we can get them to bike ride again,
right,
and start doing hobbies,
and
so
sports,
start to enlighten things. And I also make people write down 10 things that they love about their job, even if they just told me for 2 hours that they hate it. So they start to appreciate this thing. And actually, Lita, you taught me this theory about loving something before you can move on to something else.
Yes, you can't get to a happy place from an unhappy place.
Right. So you have to have that positive attitude, that positive thinking that will lead to the positive action. We just did that whole last show on positive action. So, Abraham is big on this, the secret. So you have to think about how you love it before you can leave it. Because if you say, my job sucks, my boss sucks, I hate this, what is the universe going to hear?
More bad jobs in your future.
That's right. More bad bosses, more bad jobs. But if you love it, I love the security, I love this, I love that, then you'll start to attract more positive
a more
things.
Positive career.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of when I was starting out, I did not know what I wanted to do for my real career. I got a job, just like you said.
Yep.
And I really was bored. I was bored.
How long did it take you to figure out that was not going to be your career?
I think the first day. I don't think I ever thought it was permanent.
And I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But you wanted to save money, or you wanted to have a job.
I loved the money.
Yeah.
I was like, whoo, this is great.
You had security. People don't even have jobs sometimes.
Right.
So you have this job, and then a little bit of guilt comes in because now you got this great job. And but in your heart that this is not going to be.
Yeah. And it took
So how long did it take you? Yeah.
Well, it took, I think, until I discovered Chinese medicine and I got that fire lit that this is what I want to do. I just didn't know. I just didn't know. So I kept doing what I was doing because I didn't have an alternative. Then I started studying Chinese medicine very intensively for quite a number of years. And I started my practice. And then I had a really difficult time transitioning. And I remember I just cried for a whole year because I thought I'm never going to be able to do my career as Chinese medicine. I'm going to be stuck in this job. I made a certain amount of money. I owned a house. I had a family I had to support. Like I couldn't figure out how to make a business because I was being supported by a corporate career. Yeah. And how do you transition? So sometimes I think that's a big career issue.
Right.
People are like held back by these difficult transitions.
Yeah, and that's what we were just talking about they actually have a job, they have a 401k, they have 2 weeks vacation, they have all these different little security things built in.
They're very enticing.
Yes. They're trying to lock you in.
It's like when we talked about that movie Up in the Air in, I think, that podcast that we told everyone to go back to listen to. In this movie Up in the Air, George Clooney plays this great basically he fires people for a living.
He's an axe man.
Yeah, he's an axe man. And he turns to one of the people who works at a company and says, how much did they have to pay you to give up your dream?
Yeah.
And he's like, 20,000.
Yeah, he like
something like
he
that.
threw out a figure like immediately. Okay. So then Clooney turns it around. The character turns around and says, this is a chance to go back, become a chef, learn your skills. Your family will love you because you're happy. Have your kids even ever seen you happy?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. So job versus career. If you were trying to think about yourself, do you have a job or do you have a career? And don't be judging yourself if you have
really important. We talked
job
about
that you don't like, because in this society right now, worldwide, we judge people on their professions, what they're doing for money. We do. It's not right. It's not wrong, but we do it. Yeah. What's one of the first things you ask someone when you meet them? Hey, how are you? What do you do for a living?
Yeah.
What do you do? They don't say, what do you do for money? They say, what do you do for a living? What is your career? Like, what's your career?
What's your career?
Okay. So it's very much has our identities are linked to this.
Oh, you're a lawyer or a doctor or a baker or
So automatically, if you get onto that scale, you might go, oh, he must be doing pretty good, or he must be really smart, or he must be really happy.
Right.
None of those are actually true.
Right.
Okay. So what if you said to you, if you were a doctor and you gave it up and you became a painter, and you said, hey, what do you do? You're like, I'm a painter. They're not going to say the same thing if you say I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's these social connotations that people cling to these identities, or they feel insecure because they're not something that they want to be.
And I met a painter, by the way, who was so proud of the work he did. He did really high quality interior house painting, like beautiful colors and all kinds of, like, if you hired him, he would be the best of the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And yet, people might judge him.
Yeah. Or
for
just
being
a house painter.
A house painter.
Yeah.
But he was more than a house painter.
Yeah.
He was a creative artist.
That's right. And he was following his heart, and he really loved what he did. That's a great story, because that's really, what it was. It's about. It's about decisions. And, I say this all the time. How do you make decisions in your life not based on money? To really challenge. This is one of the ones that it does come into play all the time. I have people.
Career is huge.
I have people all the time where they're like, I'm making a lot of money. I'm not happy, but I can't make that change yet. I need 3 more months. I need 6 more months. I need 5 more years.
Or maybe they're not making hardly any money, and now they're going to go do a career they hate.
Yes. Or they just don't know how to get off the treadmill.
Yeah.
So we talk about that a lot. So how do you go from stuck on the treadmill to finding a more passionate and then alignment, making you go, wow, I really love what I'm doing.
Something satisfying.
Yeah. So if you're in this, it's a slippery slope. How far and how fast do you want to go down that slope? What are you doing in your life that you have fun right now with? When's the last time you had fun? We have to back up. And where are you, if you're an adult, where are you on the line of a family? If you're a mom, do you have, are you the primary child caretaker? Are you a dad, which is sometimes a breadwinner? Those are old things. Those don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's the modern family is, either parent could stay home, either parent could work, both parents could work. It's a whole new dynamic. Yeah. So there's all these different ways that you can look at a career. Back in, I don't even know how many years ago, but a woman was never even to go in the workforce. Yeah. They would stay home and raise children. Yeah. That's gone. Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So that's another whole thing about guilt. I deal a lot with women who have kids and they want to go and do what they want to do, but they feel this obligation to raise these children.
Yes.
It's a tough one.
And that's a career if you love it.
Yes.
So, if you're the kind of mom who really wants to stay home, what did they used to call that? A domestic engineer. That's right. A domestic you could be a domestic engineer. Yeah. But that, again, society has a lot of judgment about.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. That's probably the hardest judged job on the planet, practically.
Yeah.
We all know now that it's really hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just, I don't want to go too much down that road, but some of the major issues that I see with the career challenges, does the job, and we're going to go with the idea for today that it's a job, right, that they're not in their passion career, that they're kind of challenged. They're struggling a little bit. As you ask these questions to yourself, you'll know right away if you have a job or a career. So one of the things you can start to think about yourself is, are you yourself when you go to work? Okay. Do you have to act differently? Do you have to talk differently? Are you constantly pretending to be someone that you're not, just to fit into work? Are you like the people that you work? Do you have to wear certain clothes that you don't like to wear? Do you wear a uniform? What part of your identity do you have to change every day to fit into this job?
Yeah.
And where are you going to draw the line? Okay, so that's kind of the thing about this whole identity, because one of the things we talk about on this podcast is shifting your identity and how to shift your identity to get to where you want to go. So we're going to talk about that again in another podcast. But if you want to live authentically and you're living this life and you're not authentic, you have to start to shift.
I like that idea of shifting your identity, because when I go back again and think about my corporate job, I was a system engineer. I had I had an identity as a technical person. And then I had to transform my identity to a healer. What a different role in life. Now I was being in society. So I was being somebody completely different.
Yeah. And how many times have people looked at you when they find out what you've done in the past, and especially probably in the beginning, like, you left that job?
Yeah.
Oh my God. The people that you work with became millionaires on stock trade-off and different things.
People thought I was crazy.
Walked away from all of that.
Yeah, actually, I did walk away from millions because my company went public.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't satisfying me.
Do you think you made the right choice?
Absolutely. I would give up that money every day. to do what I love.
Doing something that you love.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. And see, all that greatness led to this podcast.
Yes, there you go.
All right. So, we could talk more about the shifting, because that is part of the career. It's like we wear these masks, we wear these costumes, we act a different way. How do we get? So, all right, for you to get to a healer, so you had to shift your identity. You had to act like a healer, think like a healer, even like eat like a healer. You had to be a healer. You had to dress like a healer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then that opened up, you already were a healer. That just opened it up to step into that.
So how do you help someone make a change?
Well, you have to look at what the obstacles truly are. Are they financially completely 100% tied to that job?
Right.
Are they having some kind of pressure from a partner or a parent or even a child to keep that job?
Right.
Could be security, could be family connected. I know a lot of people that I've talked to that have family businesses and they just don't want any part of it.
Yeah, my father was that way. My father's father was really upset that he wouldn't be in his catering business. And my father ended up eventually becoming president of a college. And not until then, like 20 years later, did his father actually say, I'm glad you didn't do my business, because you did great.
Being an academic,
It took like 20 years for my dad to prove to his father that not going into the family business was a good idea.
Yeah. So if you don't have that opportunity to say no, if you truly don't want it, then you're going to have to back up and see. We'll have to, look and see where these stories, it's all about stories. What stories have you been telling yourself? What stories have other people been saying about you? How do you pull these layers away about stories?
I do think that a lot of people have to sacrifice for a little while to make this change. It doesn't have to be that way, but I do think that...
What is the sacrifice? Money for happiness?
The transition. Exactly.
Money for happiness?
I sacrificed maybe becoming very rich, that was on the horizon, for doing something I love and still making money. But it wasn't that important to me that I get that money because I hated the job.
Well, and it took time too to become that healer. You have to start with some self-cultivation. I probably sound like a broken record, but you have to have some deep conversations with yourself and not just ask yourself better questions, but ask yourself non-judgmental, no blame, no game, no shame kind of questions like, okay, I'm in this job. It's, it's not going anywhere. I can't stand it. Whatever the reasons are for you, what can I actually do about it?
And what's holding you back?
And what's holding you back?
And how are you going to work around that?
Yes. So those are all potentially life-changing questions. And can we start with baby steps? First is to get you into your happy place. You're really authentic. So in this case, I would really talk about the 5 elements right now. And so I would find out what's their first element and let's get them back into that. When's the last time they were actually authentic and themselves? We would talk about the elements, their first element. So let's just say it's fire and they had a lot of different things that they're not doing anymore because they're not happy. We try to get them back to that happiness, that level, that place of joy, what brings them passion, what makes them aliveness. Is that a word?
I like that word, aliveness. And it reminds me of going back to the stage 1 of alchemy. We asked in the very beginning of this podcast, I think it was like podcast 6 or 8, where you ask yourself, what do I really want? And that's about this passion. We talked about passion back then. Yeah. We talked about...
So what lights your fire?
Exactly.
What makes you happy? Try to do that as much as possible and don't give a flying hoot what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
On the questionnaire that I have people fill out before our first session, it says, in 6 months from now, I don't care what anyone thinks, but I'm gonna blank.
Nice.
So you can apply this to the career. You could say 6 months from now, or like you did a year from now, I'm going to walk away from this job and I'm going to try to do this. And so in the meantime, we can plant little seedlings along the way for whatever that's going to work for you.
That's the strategy.
Yes, the strategy. So to get you off the treadmill. So, and the other question you could ask yourself in each one of these palaces is, are you happy?
Yeah. Yeah, you said in the last podcast that you have a little survey that you've been doing.
Yes.
And the average of the happiness of each palace equates to whether the person,
So
how
if you're
happy
a 5
they are.
in your career palace and you're all the ones are 4s, 5s, and 6s, guess what your happiness level is?
Overall.
Yeah, like a 5, a 4, a 5.
Yeah.
That's not that great.
Yeah, you want higher than that.
You want higher than that. The other thing is if you're in a challenging place and you want to make changes, you have to start to look at these bad habits. Have you started to, from Friday night to Monday morning, been on a binge? Have you
binge
been
Netflix?
binge Netflix, or maybe even alcohol or food? They're all binging now. There's so many different things. Shopping online, just going down the rabbit hole. Instagram, social media. Start to look at those. That's right. So you've escaped your life basically because you're not happy with your career.
Which non-judgmental. Of course you're trying to escape. You hate it. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to look at it.
Right.
You just want to be an ostrich with your head in the sand.
Right. So if you want to make the changes, these are the things you have to look at. And you're right. There might be a little bit of sacrifice financially.
Right.
But you have to give that flying hoot about whatever. It's your life. Yeah. It's your life. No one's going to come in and save you. You have to come in and save yourself.
Sometimes I think that when you look at the financial quote unquote sacrifice, you're actually going to save money in the long run, because if you keep heading down an unhappy road, your health will suffer, your relationships will suffer.
Yeah.
Like, you'll end up spending a lot more money in the long run.
And you won't be able to do anything
when things really crash.
Remember I said the dominoes? So if you have career, health, and wealth, and they all start to tip down, the whole thing's going down.
Yeah.
So, and that whole thing is called your life.
Yeah. So finances may look in the short term like, oh, I have to go back to school to do that thing I love. That's going to cost me, 10 grand, 20 grand, 60 grand. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when you think about how much it costs not to work because you're so sick.
Yeah. And there's maybe other alternatives to that, going back to school. There might not have to be that. Yeah. So you've talked yourself out of it for how many years, saying, I'm going to wait this long to do this. But maybe there's things you could already do now to make yourself happier.
We just had a person that we were both working with who wanted to go back to school to study web design. And it turns out that this person decided not to go spend the money to go back to school and just started doing web design.
Yeah, and now she's
already has clients and
like crazy projects all over the place, and she's learning how to do it.
Yeah, and so that's
for free. So actually, she's getting paid to learn.
It doesn't always cost money to change your career,
and she'll know a year from now. Yeah. She'll know if she likes it or does not like it.
Exactly.
So that's a good thing. So I guess my final piece of advice, I mentioned it earlier, when you're thinking about career, non-judgmental on where you are, be in the moment where you are, and think about the things to get back to happy.
Yes.
And ask yourself, do I love my job? And if you don't love it, then you have to leave it. Simple but challenging.
So let's say that everyone should sit down with their journal for homework.
Yes,
if you choose to accept it.
If you choose to accept it.
And I think, for me, I need to always reevaluate the 9 palaces, even though I love my job.
It's a balance. Think about a rock cairn. One rock here, one rock there, balance hanging over the edge, all these different things. Yeah. That's the 9 palaces. That's your life. Finding balance in your life is what this is all about.
If you think you've arrived in the career that you love, you should still look at the career palace, because I love my job. But even just doing this podcast, I thought, I need to look at that because I love the podcast. That's not my career. My career is a healer.
Right.
So it's like, maybe I'm changing again. Maybe I'm moving more into this new career where I'm publicly speaking through this venue.
Or you're just really celebrating a hobby.
Yeah.
Or some other part of you.
At the moment, it's a hobby, for sure.
It lights your fire. It makes you happy. It's fun. It's exciting. People all over the world are responding to the podcast. This is something that is fun. Why? That's such a dirty word. I ask it to people all the time. What are you doing for fun? What's the last time you had fun? And they're like, what? Okay, when did the F word become fun?
That's so funny.
So this is fun.
Yeah.
We're having fun.
I've seen you ask people, what do you do for fun? And they literally like their
It's
jaw
like I
drops.
poked him in the eye and
it's
said,
like,
when's the last time you had a colonoscopy? Like, what? Was that fun? No. But that's what they did. So let's have some fun in this life. We're here for experiences.
Yeah.
Okay. And part of that, every single palace can have some kind of fun in it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, this podcast is super fun for me. I'm having a blast. I love everyone that's listening. Thank you so much. And so my homework assignment would look like this, just as an example. I would write down what I love about the current career that I have, and then what I'm really into as well in my life. Because I am fairly happy with my career. That doesn't mean I don't want it to grow and change and expand, because everyone who's stagnant is usually not happy.
Right. They have frozen water.
Yeah. So even if you have a career right now that you love and you think career check, I don't need to look at that, relationship check. You can go down the 9 palaces and you might have a lot of checks.
Yeah.
But still, I encourage you to go and do the homework. Sit quietly. Think about these questions, because this is what 9 palace work is about.
So we're going to go through each one of the palaces. So this is career.
Yeah.
And, it made me just think, I had someone come in a couple weeks ago and they said all they wanted to talk about, they said, I just want a job. I want to talk about career. I just need to do this. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. We talked for 2 hours and it never came up. We talked about everything else.
God.
It had nothing to do with her career or her job.
That's
that's all they could think about was this was off, but it wasn't that. It was other things that, we just asked some questions. We kind of took away some of the layers.
I think after we go through all the 9 palaces, we'll spend at least one podcast talking about these interrelationships and how you really can't take one palace and not talk about the others.
Right.
Like, we can't really talk about career and not talk about money, because most people are trying to earn money.
Actually, if you think about career and then we talked about the health and the wealth, if your health is off, it could affect where or what you can do for work. Mm-hmm. If you're in a financial situation, it could affect where you have to work, what you have to do for money. Because remember, jobs are for money, careers are for passion, for fun, for fulfillment. Now, the ideal situation is if you have a job that turns into a career that you get paid for.
Yes.
And you're you're joyful, you're happy, you're love. You're all about happy, happy, love, love.
When I switched to this career, I just counted my lucky stars every day that I loved my job.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of luck, but it was also you saying what you're going to do, sticking with it, taking that leap of faith. You did all the work. It wasn't just luck.
No.
You didn't wake up one day and go, woo, lucky, lucky me. No, you worked your butt off.
It took me a long time too. Years.
Yeah. So
years to transition.
It's just a challenge. So those are the things. I think that's a really good place to end there.
Yes.
And so think about your career. Think about how it affects your whole life.
Yeah, just recap what they can write in terms of the journaling.
Well, I would say, first you could say, my job is.
Right.
Okay, that's one of the questions I like to use. Mm-hmm. And then see what you write down. And then you say, I love my job or I hate my job. And then you could say, you could say, my job is not me, or is it me? Like, am I being authentic? Am I showing up as me, or am I showing up as someone else?
That's a good one.
Okay, so think about that. And then think about how much, I want you to write down how many hours a day is for your job. And I'm talking about picking out your clothes, driving to work, working, driving home, thinking about work, taking emails, taking texts. How many hours a week are you putting into your job?
That goes back to that time management podcast we did.
And you will see that how much time you put into your job in relationship to your life, you better love your job.
Yeah.
Because you're giving away half your life. Yeah. Probably more.
Yeah.
More than half your life for something that you either love or you don't love. So think about those kind of bigger questions, and then think about that for a while, let it marinate, and then we can talk about in the future listen to the other podcasts about how to remove some of the obstacles. You're going to have to start telling yourself different stories and shifting your identity to where you want to go. And my last thing is for homework. What do you do for fun? And when was the last time you did it?
Yes.
Okay. If you're having fun all the time and you're happy and things are well,
then you probably don't have a problem.
Yeah. Or challenge.
A challenge.
Okay. That's it for career.
All right. So we are going to wrap this up and stay tuned. We're going to tell you a little bit more about a couple things we're doing.
So this is a great place to end. If you have any questions, send them to us, please, at questions@inspiredactionpodcast.com. We read them all. And if you have a little time, like we mentioned in the beginning, and you feel inspired, take a moment, go to iTunes, click the little star, tell us why you like the show, and hopefully we'll get up to the top of the health category in iTunes.
Yes.
And then more people, it's not for us, it's for more people to find this show, find their way in the world, find out that they can be happy on the way to happy.
Yeah. Okay. We're excited to talk to you about the Master Alchemy program.
So don't go yet. Stay a little longer.
Yeah. And so we developed this program. It's a year-long program where we decided we wanted to put everything we've been talking about on the podcast and more into a year-long program where someone who's either a healer or wants to be doing what Jay does, alchemical life strategist, or is just interested in their own personal self-cultivation. Yeah. So those are 3 tracks. We wanted to put together everything we could think of in a year-long program that would facilitate you moving forward in your life.
So it's a great program. We're really excited about it. Everyone that we have connected with have just been like, I have been waiting for a long time. Yes.
For this.
That's right. So if it's February 2019 where you are right now, you still have time to apply for this year. You can pick your track and you will have a little interview with you. It's application only. We're really excited. But if you want to think about it, you can get on the list for more announcements for 2020, which we're going to continue this program into the next couple of years.
Yes. If you're interested in the program, you'll give us a shout out. Go to inspiredactionpodcast.com. There's a big button on the front page. And if you want the link, it's inspiredactionpodcast.com/MAP.
Yeah, that's great.
Check it out.
Yeah. And let's talk. If you have any questions on anything, you can always reach us at the Facebook group Inspired Action Podcast. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at Lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or Jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.